Welcome in to the Punt and Pass podcast. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my co-host, Jake From. Be sure to follow us on social media at Punt and Pass on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Drew Butler. He is at From Jake. Head on over to puntandpass.com, the number one destination for all things college football. If you did head over to puntandpass.com before the weekend started, maybe you bought a little bit of merch, checked out our YouTube page, or went to our picks, you would know that Jake Fromm went 5-0 last weekend. 5-0 against the spread in week 7, which is very, very impressive. It was a tough week, man. A lot of good action, and you had it right down pat. 5-0 against the spread, which takes you to 20-15 on the season. Look, I went 2-3. I wasn't that bad, but you, my friend, are doing very well.
Man, well, just got lucky every once in a while. Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. But it was a lot of good games, so it's pretty tough. Not trying to pick myself up at all, but it was some tough games this weekend for sure.
No doubt, dude. Very tough. You did get lucky. A blind squirrel does find a nut. And if you listening have gotten lucky recently, and you're thinking about maybe proposing, or you need to go get a piece of jewelry for your significant other, look no further than Solomon Brothers Jewelers. That's right. This episode of Punt and Pass is presented to you by Solomon Brothers Jewelers. Why Solomon Brothers? Well, because they've got the lowest prices on the highest quality jewelry and diamonds guaranteed. The largest diamond and jewelry inventory in the Southeast. And Solomon Brothers is for anyone with any budget. If you go into one of their two awesome locations, one's in Alpharetta just past the Avalon, the other is in Buckhead, 17th floor Tower Place. You can mention the Punt and Pass podcast or just mention myself or Jake and get 10% off your jewelry purchase. Head on over to @Solomon Brothers on Instagram and Twitter, SolomonBrothers.com, and please check us out on social media because Solomon Brothers is doing a giveaway with the Punt and Pass podcast to round out the month of October. @Solomon Brothers on Instagram and Twitter, SolomonBrothers.com, the biggest selection, the best quality, lowest prices, and an in-store experience that is totally unmatched. All right, Jake, let's go 3 and out. What was unmatched as well was the slate of games this past weekend, and we will start with the one that everybody wants to discuss, that, of course, Alabama against Tennessee. So much excitement heading into this game, College Game Day back in Knoxville for the second time in 3 weeks. And, buddy, it lived up to the hype. Tennessee beats Alabama 52-49. Dude, this game was wild.
Yes, it was insane. I guess both teams decided they didn't want to play defense. It was the most points Alabama has given up since 1907.
That is so crazy. I know.
Crazy. Yeah. I don't know. It's like the first time Tennessee's beaten Alabama in 15 years?
Yep.
I mean, just absolutely insane. And Alabama arguably should have won the game, had every opportunity to. For me, obviously, everybody's going to look at the kick. The kick was wide right. They missed it. But I thought they could have executed better on that 4 downs they had to give them and get into better field goal position. All they had to do was complete a ball over the middle, clock 4. You get 8 extra yards. You wind the clock down. That way, Tennessee doesn't have the opportunity to go down and score. So,
yes,
one of the very few times where I thought it was maybe mismanaged. And I mean, they threw the ball 4 times, went 0 for 4, and didn't move the ball, didn't hardly waste any time off the clock. And so Tennessee has the opportunity to go down and score after the missed field goal, throw up 2 or 3 incredible balls. The one they caught,
crazy.
I mean, was just insane. And then also, you can't help but mention just a little bit of an undisciplined football team in Alabama with their penalties. We saw
a little bit, 15 penalties, dude. And they still scored 49 points. That is insane.
So it's a testament to how good they are, but also just the uphill battle they're just putting on themselves to be a good football team. And we saw it in week 2 versus Texas. And it came back to bite them in the rear end versus Tennessee because they're a little bit better football team than Texas was.
If I would have told you when we recorded our podcast last Wednesday evening that Bryce Young was going to have 455 passing yards, that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to run for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that Alabama was going to lose 49 points and lose, what would you have said?
I would have said you're crazy.
Crazy.
I didn't think Bryce was going to be as healthy as he was. They did a great job.
A warrior.
Yeah, they did a great job of playing it in the media, which, smart, and kudos to them for playing it off. That way, they had to do a little bit that Tennessee during the week had to do both. Had to do the not wildcat stuff, but all the quarterback run stuff that Milrow does, and and that way they had to do more. Was more on their plate for those guys in preparing, and obviously it worked a little bit. They scored 49 points and should have
Yeah.
scored 52.
Yeah, Tennessee, look, they had 2 turnovers to Alabama's only 1. Total yards, Alabama had 569, Tennessee had 567. Alabama had 32 first downs, Tennessee had 29 first downs. So these guys were right with them from an offensive pace standpoint. And then get this, Jake. I thought this was crazy. Alabama, time of possession, 37 minutes and 29 seconds to Tennessee's only 22 minutes and 31 seconds.
Wow.
You talked about the last minute of the game. I know people who listen to this podcast oftentimes hear us discuss situational football. That right there, people, is situational football.
Oh, huge.
Using the clock, not giving Tennessee the opportunity to get the ball back with any time left, putting your kicker in a better position, running plays that will allow Alabama to utilize timeouts and not have to stress in those types of situations. Will Reichard's kick, a 50-yarder from the right hash, tough kick, no gimme whatsoever. I would have preferred to be on the left hash. Maybe Will prefers it on the right hash. He hit a good ball. Never started online. Just kept it out to the right. What was there? 18 seconds left, 15 seconds left. Hendon Hooker gets the ball. 2 amazing plays. They have a timeout. They clock it, and they line up Chase McGrath for that 40-yarder. Now, that kick getting tipped, the knuckleball duck still crossing over the goalpost. That's how you know it's their night. Alabama defensive lineman blew through the offensive line. He tipped it. I've never seen a football with that rotation ever. And it went through the uprights for a win. And then they went absolutely nuts, stormed the field, ripped down the goalpost. It's funny, though. It makes you think, and you've said it on this podcast. Our buddy, the poor man Ryan Skates, said it as well all week long. He's like, is this what life could be like with Alabama not being the boogeyman that they have been in the past? Alabama, the muffed punt. Remember when McKinstry gets away from it and the tight end thinks it's been touched and he goes and tries to get it, and they just gave the ball back to Tennessee. That never happens with Alabama. The turnovers never happens with Alabama. And then you talk about 15 penalties, Jake. I mean, that is so against the grain of what Alabama stands for. It's like, what's going on? Is it a lack of focus? Is it a lack of discipline? But 15 penalties, you will get your ass kicked in any game. It is remarkable that they still scored 49 points with that many self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's just very undisciplined, very non-Alabama football-like. And then just the uphill battle that they're still almost able to overcome.
Crazy.
It's still even crazy. I just it blows my mind. And then Tennessee, what I thought was very interesting is now the athletic department or somebody in Tennessee is starting a GoFundMe for those goalposts. They stormed the field and took off.
I think they got fined $100,000, which is like standard practice for the SEC, but I don't think they care. The fans certainly did not care. It looked like a pretty damn fun time for sure.
Oh man, I bet they're still rocking up there in Rocky Top. But to me, like the athletic department, come on guys, y'all suck it up, y'all pay it. Don't
dive into the pockets. Don't bring us into it.
Don't bring the fans into it. I mean that was more their night, the fans' night, and obviously the guys in the locker room. But come on, don't do that.
Fast start for Tennessee. I mean, major shout out to Hendon Hooker, who's got to be right up there with CJ Stroud for Heisman love right now. He went 21 of 30, 385 yards, 5 touchdowns against 1 interception. And I'd be remiss not to talk about Jalen Hyatt.
That was that one receiver too.
Jalen Hyatt. 6 catches, 207 yards, 5 touchdowns. Unbelievable, dude. I mean, I'm sitting there watching the game going, this is crazy. And as everybody knows, my wife went to Alabama. So you're watching the game and it's just like, this is it, man. This is insane. Now, of course, Tennessee coming to Athens November 5th. That's in 2.5 weeks from now. That game will be massive. I saw a statistic yesterday. I would need to bring it up, but I don't believe there's been a top 3 ranked matchup in Stanford Stadium since maybe like the early 80s or something. Maybe it was a Clemson Georgia game, but it has been a very, very long time.
I saw a similar stat what you're talking about, where it's one of the highest matchup games in a very, very long time. And it's a big deal because this morning I clicked on my iPad and I was typing in the Google bar or whatever to look at the stats from the Georgia versus Vandy game. And I type in Georgia versus, and
Go
then
straight to
it
Tennessee.
immediately comes up Tennessee tickets.
Okay, there you
That's how
go.
you know. That's how you know it's going to be a big one.
So my buddy Chris Marler from Saturday Down South, great social media follow at Vern Funquist. I think he does it right. He has fun. He jokes around, but he's got really good content, and he is an Alabama fan. So Friday or Saturday, he was talking about the game. He was talking about, there's too much hope in Rocky Top. Bama's going to whoop up on Tennessee. And I was starting to think that too, Jake, just leading into the game. I was like, I just have a bad feeling about this. This is just another game for Alabama. I said it on last week's podcast. You don't just beat Bama. You have to take your lumps. You have to have that like gut-wrenching, heartbreaking type pain and then get over what should be a victory against the Crimson Tide. So I compiled a list for him. I was like, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen here. If Alabama does lose, you're going to need a list of excuses to pull from, right? Because it's not just going to be, oh, Tennessee was better than us. So I put together a list for him. And I said, here is all I can fit into one tweet. I said, number one, Bryce Young is not 100%, right? Pretty standard procedure. He's been injured.
That was an easy one. That was a gimme.
Yeah, that was a gimme. And then number two, I said, where did this go? Okay, here we go. Sorry. Where did it go? Okay, here we go. Found it. No. Yes. The list of excuses for any Alabama fan heading into the game this past weekend. Number one, Bryce Young is not 100%. Number two, Alabama's won 15 straight. Tennessee was bound to win one. Number three, ex-Alabama player got hurt during the game. That's unfair. Number four, the refs didn't give us the calls we are used to getting. Number five, Josh Heupel cheated and had a mole inside Alabama's football facility. And then number six, just cry. So an Alabama fan jumped onto this tweet, not named Chris, and he was like, Alabama, the refs have been calling everything against Alabama all season. You must not watch football because that take is objectively false. And I said, well, hold on a second. What are you arguing? If you're talking about 2022, well, I don't really care. Welcome to the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
The shoe is on the other foot. Sucks for you because for 15 straight years, Alabama has gotten every call. Every call. Every referee is so worried about upsetting Lord Saban, is so worried about calling something bad against the Tide. And if it has happened this year, they had 15 penalties on Saturday. Well, welcome. Welcome to what everybody has had to deal with against Alabama for years past. So it's just funny tweet. It's always fun to jump on social media, especially during a crazy game like that. But Alabama, 15 penalties. Tough, man. That is tough. And they go down to Tennessee 52-49.
I got one more thing on the game too. And if Hendon Hooker does move on, continues the year that he is having, this quote unquote Heisman season, you can't help but say that was his Heisman moment last game with 15, 16 seconds, whatever it was, going down, scoring, and winning the football game. So, I mean, that is so hard to do. Reminds me a lot of that Bills Chiefs game last year in the AFC Championship game. That's what that game reminded me a ton of. And yeah, man, I thought he balled out. I mean, both quarterbacks absolutely balled out. We're just playing at the top of their game. But it was just who had the ball last. And Tennessee did.
You are totally right. All right, let's go to second down. Georgia AP poll still ranked number one. Ohio State's number two now. Tennessee number three. Remarkable.
Yeah.
How about this though? Reddit college football again, which is a great.
So
did you
glad.
see this?
Oh
did
yeah,
you see this?
I was at the game. It was like halftime. I was scrolling through it, and I saw it. I'm like, no way! I'm about to send this to Drew, and then I saw that you had retweeted it. Yeah.
So Reddit college football, which is a great social media follow on Twitter at Reddit CFB, they said prepare yourself for an all SEC college football playoff. How does this happen? Well, I will prepare you, and take it how you want. Who cares what the champs are or whatever. 12-1 SEC champion Alabama, 12-1 SEC runner-up Georgia Bulldogs, 11-1 Tennessee with their only loss to Georgia. And an 11-1 Ole Miss team with their only loss being to Alabama for an entirely Southeastern Conference college football playoff. Now, is that possible? Technically, yes. What else happens in the world of college football? I don't know. Michigan looked pretty good this past weekend. They dominated Penn State. Sean Clifford got knocked out. They could not stop a nosebleed in the run game. Ohio State, of course, looks really good.
Yeah.
Look, man, Big 12 probably on the outside looking in. Pac-12 as well. USC lost to Utah, which was a crazy game. We'll get to that in a bit. But the committee, Jake, the college football committee is going to have their hands full in a big, big way. And those first rankings come out in 2 weeks.
Man, that's going to be tough. Just looking at it, Ohio State and Michigan, obviously they're going to play themselves later in the year. I believe it's week 12, week 13.
It's the last week of the regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they had the Big Ten championship game. Yep.
So that's going to be tough. You got Clemson. I think you can make the argument over Clemson just because of their schedule. Putting in an Ole Miss over Clemson. I mean, they almost lost to Florida State last weekend, 34-28. I know Florida State had 14 points in the fourth quarter to make it closer to what it was, but yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of good football teams left. I mean, UCLA 6-0, TCU 6-0.
Yeah.
Syracuse is 6-0.
They're playing Clemson this weekend. That's a big game.
My boys USC lost this weekend to Utah
Did you see the end of that game?
I didn't see the end of it. I watched till halftime.
They went for 2 at the very end of the game. Cam Rising was like, you know what? Let's just go for 2 and take this sucker home. And they freaking got it and walked out with a victory. I was like, wow. I was hoping for overtime so they could cover and lay the 3.5. But of course they didn't. And that game was done. You picked USC plus the 3.5. So that's what rounded out your perfect 5-0 weekend.
Man, just sometimes winners just win.
No doubt, dude.
I mean, Oregon is still hanging around there. They're 5-1, and their only losses to the Dogs.
I know.
So, look, there's still a lot to get figured out and a lot going on, but just college football, man, it's crazy.
It's only gonna get crazier. That's the beauty of this awesome sport. It's only gonna get crazier. And what else is going on? All right, let's go to third down. It's the Week 8 Big Watch of the Week presented by Solomon Brothers. That's right. At Solomon Brothers on Twitter and Instagram, SolomonBrothers.com. Solomon Brothers Jewelers have the lowest prices on the highest quality jewelry and diamonds, guaranteed. They also offer interest-free financing. They've got custom jewelry design, lifetime diamond upgrades in their stores. They are absolutely beautiful, and they've got unreal service. You've got to go check out Solomon Brothers, 2 locations, one in Alpharetta just past Avalon, the other in Buckhead, 17th floor of Tower Place. What is the big watch of the week coming up for Week 8, Jake? We've got a bunch more ranked matchups. I absolutely love it. You just mentioned Syracuse, undefeated number 14 ranked Syracuse, heading into Death Valley to take on the 5th ranked Clemson Tigers. ACC going to figure out who they are. Out west in the Pac-12, you've got the number 10 undefeated UCLA Bruins heading up to Eugene to take on the 9th-ranked Oregon Ducks. I believe that is where College Game Day is headed, Jake. So Bo Nix will be getting a ton of love on the media train there. And then in the SEC, what's going on with Alabama? Can they bounce back after an absolutely gut-wrenching loss to Tennessee? Number 24, Mississippi State, who got beat down by Kentucky this past weekend, heading into Tuscaloosa to take on the 6th-ranked now Alabama Crimson Tide. It never feels correct when you say 6th-ranked. And then Texas, Quinn Ewers. Look, there's a lot of football on. That's why it's the big watch of the week heading into Week 8. Number 20, Texas, taking on number 11, Oklahoma State. That's it, man. Look, we are in the meat of the college football season. Of course, Georgia on a bye week. So is Florida gearing up for the game in Jacksonville the week after this weekend. But your Week 8 big watch of the week presented by Solomon Brothers, I would have to lean towards that ACC matchup of unbeatens, number 14 Syracuse at number 5 Clemson.
Yeah, you like that one? See, I was just looking at Syracuse's schedule here because I'm like, how are they 6-0? I'm just trying to figure it out. They played Louisville, played Kentucky, played UConn, Connecticut, Purdue, Virginia, Wagner. Now, and they just played NC State. So NC State's been their best
without
game.
Devin Leary. Yeah.
So, are they for real? I don't know, but it's that time in the season where the schedule is starting to catch up. And in these next 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to find out the posers, and you're going to figure out the guys who are here for real. So, I don't know. For me, I really like that UCLA game and Oregon game.
Okay.
Personally, I do. I think what Chip Kelly and them have going on at UCLA, Oregon's the only game they've lost has been to the Dogs. It's been that first game of the year. Bo Nix has just been better. move on
That's the
here
3:30 game this
into
next
the meat of
weekend.
the schedule. So I really like that one.
Love it, man. Great weekend coming up. And of course, you mentioned getting into the meat of the schedule, finding out who teams are. Georgia certainly about to get into that meat of the schedule. Let's go inside the 5. Let's wrap up your 5-0 weekend. Unbelievable. And we'll start with that Georgia game, 55-0 against Vanderbilt. I believe that brings the tally to what is 62 plus 55 to 0, because that's what Georgia has done to Vanderbilt the past 2 seasons.
Oof.
They took care of business. They covered a 38-point spread. The total was 58.5. It goes under because Georgia scored 55 points. It's exactly what you wanted to see, right, Jake?
Yeah,
taking care of the football,
yeah,
executing, doing what you're supposed to do, get into the bye week, get healthy, and get ready for what will be a season-defining 4-week stretch on the back side of the schedule.
You mentioned it earlier, so I'll bring it back. The time of possession here, the Dogs had the ball 39 minutes out of a 60-minute game to Vanderbilt's 21, which is that it's usually not that lopsided. Usually you're going to see, we talk about a standard deviation here of
standard
30,
deviation. Do you learn that in econ?
Business 4000 here.
I like that.
So 30 minutes is obviously half. Usually you don't get anything more than like 30, 34 minutes on each way. And then to have 39 is insane. So that's good. I mean, they did a great job with first downs. It's something to look at.
Usually 30 first downs. Vanderbilt only had 10.
Usually the goal is like, and this is the goal too, not what you normally achieve. The goal was like 21, 22 first downs, and they had 31, which is they're moving the ball. They're staying on schedule.
You guys would talk about the number of first downs you wanted to get.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Third down efficiency, insane when you're
8 of 13. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Anytime you're over 50%, you're balling as a unit and as a group. So
192 rushing yards.
Yeah, and when
579 total yards.
Yeah, and when you look at it too, it's by committee too.
Yeah.
Like the rushing, they're spreading the love. Dejon, he's at 49 yards. Kenny's at 43. I mean, Cash had a run for 36. Branson, he's at 34, 8 carries for 34 yards. So they're doing it by committee, and even receiving too. Darnell had a big game.
Oh,
but
that was awesome.
Yeah,
his catch was awesome.
That catch he had, never needed the left hand at all. Just stuck.
Looked like he almost deflated the football by snagging it out of the air. Like it looked like if there was a sound effect on the television screen, it would have gone. The way he just grabbed it out of the air and never even thought about bringing it in with his left hand.
Yeah, I thought the guy calling the game, I don't know who it was, but
Taylor Zarzer and Matt Stinchcomb,
yeah, did a great job. He said, "Is Georgia playing with youth footballs?" Because
that's what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, just stuck it, brought it down. So I thought that was a great comment, a great call on that one. But receiving too by committee, you got Big O, Dylan Bell on the scene, 5 catches, 54 yards. Lad McConkey at 49 yards. Marcus Rosemy, 48. Just Dom, Kieris. I mean, it's just doing it by committee. So it's not one guy. And I don't know. To me, there's a lot of good to see there. And you can make an argument for a question that maybe they do need a guy, but I'm liking this stuff by committee, and it's going to be good for them to get healthy here in this bye week and move on to that meat of the schedule. This 4-week stretch is going to be a tough one.
No doubt. 0 complaints getting out of this Vanderbilt game, 55-0. Georgia takes care of business. Stetson Bennett kind of gets back on track. He was 24-30, 289, 2 touchdowns. Talking about Carson Beck, he looked really good. 8 of 11, 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. He can sling it. He is your prototypical tall, stand in the pocket and deliver seeds type quarterback. And it's really good, Jake, to see him execute in game. I don't care who it's against. In-game execution gives everybody, fan base, coaching staff, teammates, the confidence to say this guy can answer the bell when called upon.
Completely agree. It is no easy task to just get thrown in, and I hate to say this, but to go and get quote unquote garbage time and to go out and compete and to execute, because it's just not easy. You spent the entire game chilling on the sideline. You had the pregame warmups 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not loose. It's just nothing about it is just an ideal situation. But to go in and execute the way he does, and basically picking up right where they left off, and even creating more of a spark is just awesome to see. And a guy who, he's laser focused into the game. He's not out there just cutting up on the sideline.
Yeah,
I mean, the dude's focused. When he goes in and does that, he's focused, he's locked in, and he's ready to go at a moment's notice.
absolutely. Absolutely. So very, very good, sound football game by
Yeah.
Georgia against Vanderbilt this past weekend. Let's touch on that Penn State Michigan game real quick. I thought Penn State was going to play this one really close. There are statistics out there that will tell you James Franklin against top 10 teams. I don't know what the hell I was thinking about trying to bet Penn State, but Sean Clifford gets knocked out of the game, their starting
Yeah.
quarterback, and they couldn't stop a nosebleed. I mean, Michigan
No.
was running all over them. It
Yeah.
was ridiculous. Michigan dominates Penn State at home 41-17.
It was
Look,
like a
Michigan looks for real, dude.
yeah, it was like a stat. It was like halfway through the second quarter where the game Penn State was winning and they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
stats were just
Oh, yeah. It was when they had that pick
insanely
six.
lopsided.
Yes.
It was a pick
Yes.
six and another turnover. And Sean Clifford had run off on this huge
70.
run.
Yep. Yep. He got
Yep,
caught up inside the 10-yard
the
line.
safety got messed up with his eye discipline, and he runs 60-something yards, and they end up scoring on fourth down. I think fourth and goal there. So anyway, Penn State was winning and shouldn't had no business even being in the same stadium as Michigan up to that point. But obviously, it ended up being what it should have been, a blowout,
Yeah.
because I mean, could not compete with Michigan at all. Michigan
Michigan
just
looks
played
pretty
much
damn
better
good,
football.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michigan looks pretty damn good. Looks like they will not be scared of Ohio State later on the season. And I would expect there's always some sort of funkiness in the Big Ten, especially as the
Yeah.
weather starts getting colder and
Yep.
kind of all bets are off and it evens out some of these matchups. But I would expect both Ohio State and Michigan to be undefeated at the end of the season. We talked ad nauseum about Tennessee beating Bama. Of course, the Vols win 52-49. Some Pac-12 action. USC goes down. They were 7-0, ranked number 7
Yeah.
to Utah. So Utah wins at home 43-42, further muddying the waters in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
It looks like UCLA in that Oregon game, like you said, your big watch of the week by Solomon Brothers is that top 10 Pac-12 matchup between the Bruins and the Ducks.
After watching the first half of this one, I thought USC had it in the bag, but they are kind of watching them. It's kind of like a roller coaster watching them, because they'll just bounce off and have an 8 play drive where there's no way you're stopping them. Caleb Williams is just unstoppable, and then they'll do a couple of things and you're like, oh, what? How did you go from that to that? It looks like they're at practice and just had a bad couple of plays, but maybe some more consistent play out of them moving forward. But I mean, they're a good football team. I mean, they scored 42 points and should have won this football game. It's very similar, I think, to the Tennessee Alabama game. Whoever had the ball last, and
For
so
sure.
to speak. But
For sure, another awesome game.
Yeah, I think they're still right in the mix.
I would totally agree with you. And that game's going to be awesome this weekend. So I can't wait to tune into that one, especially as College Game Day will be there as well. Did you watch any College Game Day this past week with Peyton Manning on it?
Well,
Pat McAfee?
just a tad, yeah.
Okay.
Just
I got
Go
mixed. I got mixed reviews on my group text. They were saying,
yeah?
"What's going on here?" I wasn't watching it. I was at the pumpkin patch.
I mean,
with the girls.
fill me in. I mean, yeah.
Just saying the shtick might be a little bit overplayed. The shtick to Coach Saban's face is a little bit uncomfortable to watch. But time and a place, like that's what College Game Day is now. Corso is back, so good for him. Knock on wood. Hopefully he stays healthy.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But those, the scenes in Knoxville were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was really, really cool. There was a great game in the Big 12 as well. TCU takes down Oklahoma State in 2 overtimes, 43-40. So TCU still remains undefeated. But yeah, Jake, unbelievable weekend of college football. Again, you went 5-0 against the spread to take you to 20-15 on the season. I went 2-3. I'm 12-23, which is not good by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm working to get better. I am working to get better. So I guess my last question is this. It's a bye week for Georgia coming up. So we'll touch on a little bit of everything. Maybe on Thursday's episode, we kind of give our thoughts on the midpoint of the 2022 season. But watching Tennessee and what they did from an offensive standpoint against Alabama, knowing that they are coming to Athens in a couple of weeks, how do you feel about that matchup for Georgia? Are you optimistic? Are you a little pessimistic? Are you thinking Tennessee's going to come in and just hang it up like they did against Alabama when they play the Dogs?
I feel really good about it. And the reason I do, one, is because we're playing at home.
Okay.
Both of Tennessee's biggest games have been at home for them,
Yes.
which
Florida and Alabama.
I think definitely helps. And then two, I like the matchup with our DBs better versus their receivers. I don't think Alabama has the same dudes playing receiver and the same dudes playing DB as they
Mm-hmm.
once did. With all those draft guys they've had coming out the past couple of
Yeah.
years. So
Note a
man,
noticeable difference from their perimeter skill players for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be a really good matchup for Keely Ringo.
Yes.
Basically, I promise every NFL scout is going to be dialed in
Oh
to
man.
this game to watch. It just they are. And Kamari Lassiter on the other side. It's hey,
Game time.
hey, you know what's coming. Get ready. And so I really like the matchup a lot better. I feel really good about it.
I
And
do
two,
too.
good.
um, I was watching the game, and obviously everybody was watching the game, but my very close friend Tony Morelli, who is a huge Tennessee fan, shout out to Tony. I'm sure he's still probably a little bit hungover. I was like, dude, is Tennessee scoring too fast? Like, hold on to the ball a little bit so that Bryce Young and Alabama can't get the ball back and then take all the time off the clock. This is from our buddy Chris Marler, who I was talking about earlier at Vern Frunquist. Tennessee had 7 total touchdown drives versus Alabama. 6 of the 7 were in less than 2 minutes. 5 of the 7 were 5 plays or less. 4 of the 7 were in less than 1 minute and 2 seconds. 3 of their final scoring drives, including the game-winning field goal, were from 3 plays and lasted under 55 seconds. I mean, it was like couple plays, boom, score. Couple plays, boom, score. I'm like, slow it down just a little bit. But to their credit, they won the game, Jake. I do not think that kind of pace will be put up against Georgia's defense. Tennessee plays Kentucky the week before the Georgia game. Kentucky has a bye before they play Tennessee. Kentucky just shut down Mississippi State. Say what you want about Mississippi State. That game is in Neyland, the Kentucky-Tennessee game. That is a heated rivalry between those two teams.
How are they getting lucky with the schedule?
I don't know. I don't know.
This is...
But Kentucky having a bye week to scheme up against what Josh Heupel did, which was open up the playbook entirely against Alabama. Watch out. And that could be a look-ahead spot for Tennessee. It could also be a look-ahead spot for Georgia, taking on Florida. It's all setting up to be a great matchup, though. Sorry to get a little bit off the rocker there.
I don't want them to lose, though.
No, neither do I.
Yeah.
Neither do I. I just think that could be a little bit more of a look at it. It's like a closer game, slower start. Kentucky coming off the bye week, that gives me a little bit reason to think, hey, they could scheme some stuff up, figure out how to slow down this offense. But it's the beauty of college football, man. You got to play the games.
That's it. And two, you can't help say it to all my rednecks out there. I love how Georgia does with their schedule, and how there's a bye week before Florida, which is the opening day of gun season. Man,
gun season.
Awesome. Yeah, they do a great job with that.
So where will you go? Will you go back down to Warner Robins?
I don't know. I don't know where I'll be.
Did you go to Warner Robins High School or Houston County?
I went to Houston County. My brother spent 2 years at Houston County and then transferred to Warner Robins. And then went
2006 Georgia High School State Playoffs semifinals. Peachtree Ridge beat Warner Robins in the Georgia Dome 13-7. No big deal. I had 2 field goals. No big deal. So those North Atlanta boys took care of business.
Appreciate you bringing up the glory days there.
Yes, of course. I have got my high school championship ring on too. You just can't see it. If you're on YouTube, you can see I wear it every night to bed. There you go. There you go. Well, that was always fun, man. Thanks for wrapping up week 7. And thank you for tuning in. As always, on our early week episodes, this episode was presented to you by Solomon Brothers. Why Solomon Brothers? Well, they are the best. Simple as that. Family owned and operated since 1982. That's over 35 years. Solomon Brothers has the largest diamond and jewelry inventory in the Southeast. The store is for anyone with any budget. If you mention Punt and Pass or myself or Jake, you get 10% off your jewelry purchase at Solomon Brothers on Instagram and Twitter. SolomonBrothers.com. 2 locations, one in Alpharetta, just past the Avalon, the other, Buckhead, 17th floor, Tower Place. Follow us on social media at Punt and Pass, Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Drew Butler. He is at From Jake, puntandpass.com. And we will talk to you on Thursday. See ya.
We out.